This is the Dr. A Show with your host, Dr. Will Aguila.
On today's show, learn how senior citizens are making a mark on the courts as well as on the track. The 2013 Senior Olympics will be held in Cleveland, Ohio, July 19th through August 1st, and a film called The Age of Champions will air on PBS to coincide with the Games. We will have the filmmakers here today to show us that no matter what the age, the competitive drive is still alive. Angelina Jolie and many others have made the courageous choice to undergo preventive double mastectomies due to a bad gene. This gene dramatically increases the risk for breast cancer. Learn today from one of the country's leading authorities of breast cancer prevention what you can do to avoid surgery if you have this deadly gene. And summer is here, and many of you are traveling with your kids or maybe travel often with business. Either way, do not wreck your diet. We have a guest here today that's going to show you how to travel and how to eat well when you're doing it. A lot of great information with a positive message, so don't miss today's show. First up, how old is too old? What is the age limit to run a marathon or play on a basketball team or even win a decathlon? Our next guest shows us that will to compete remains young and strong even in our golden years. Age of Champions is the story of 5 competitors who sprint, leap, and swim for gold at the National Senior Olympics. This wonderful film for public broadcasting is the brainchild of Christopher Rufo and Keith Oshwart. These are co-founders of the Documentary Foundation, a California-based nonprofit dedicated to documentary production, education, and outreach. They have produced 3 films for PBS, Age of Champions, Roughing It, and Diamonds in the Dunes. And they have been hailed by the New York Times for their fascinating material and good eye for the unusual. Welcome to the show, Christopher.
Good to be here.
What inspired you to tell this story?
What inspired me to tell the story of the Senior Olympics was really 2 things. First, it's something that is an unexplored world, people that haven't heard about it. Sometimes when, people watch the trailer, they look at me surprised and say, is this real? They just can't believe that there's people all over the United States that are, running, jumping, swimming, doing everything from pole vault to javelin to, hammer throw, in their 80s, 90s, or even 100 and older. So it has this kind of element of surprise, an element of kind of impossibility. And then second, there's some very human stories. We tried to capture the personalities of these people. You can imagine if you are a 95-year-old and you're a competitive basketball player, you have a whole wealth of life experience and stories, and you probably have a lot of personality. So we tried to capture these stories. We tried to also capture some more serious stories, whether it's the loss of a spouse or going through a serious illness like cancer, that everyone can relate to, that are kind of universal themes of growing older. And, we thought that the combination of those 2 things could really inspire and help motivate our viewers.
No doubt. But tell me a little bit about the Senior Olympics. A lot of people don't know what that is.
Yeah, the Senior Olympics is actually a huge sporting event. You might not find it on ESPN or ABC, but 300,000 athletes all across the country in all 50 states, age 50 and older, compete in the Senior Olympics. It's divided into 5-year age groups, and in the film we focused on people in the higher age groups, but anyone can compete, and you go from the local games to your state games, and then 10,000 athletes every 2 years qualify to compete in the nationals. And an interesting fact is that actually there are more competitors in the Senior Olympics than the actual Summer Olympics, just as a number of participants. So, it's really a big event, and people have a lot of fun, and it's very, very exciting.
So this is quite serious.
It can be, yeah. I mean, there's people that are there for the fun and the food and the camaraderie, and there are a lot of people there. A lot of the people in the film, for example, that are there to win. They're deadly serious. Yeah. They're chasing world records. There's one gentleman in the film named Adolf Hoffman. He's 86 years old, and he's been chasing the world record in pole vault for more than 79 years.
Wait a minute, hang on. He's 86 and he pole vaults?
Absolutely, yeah. He's a 86-year-old. He's from San Antonio, Texas. He runs a full 160-acre cattle ranch, and his passion in his spare time is pole vaulting. So, he learned how to pole vault as a kid, and he's been doing it ever since. And his goal is to break the world record and jump over 8 feet.
Oh my goodness! Were these senior athletes? Were they athletes when they were younger, or some of them just took it up later in life, or what?
It's a great question. It's actually about 50-50 from the folks that I interviewed and spoke with. a lot of these people, they were athletes when they were younger, maybe in high school, occasionally in college. And then, life happens, they get busy, they raise their families, and they put it away for a while, and then maybe are rediscovering it in their older adulthood. On the other hand, one of the characters in the film, Roger Gentleholm, he's 100 years old, and he didn't pick up a tennis racket until he was 74 years old. He literally saw a coupon for a tennis racket in the paper and decided he'd give it a shot.
What was the process that you used to pick the characters for the film?
Casting is the number one thing. In a fiction movie or a documentary like Age of Champions, getting good characters is really critical. So what we did is we sent out a casting call email to all 10,000 athletes that compete in the Senior Olympics. We actually had more than 1,000 people respond to our casting call with photos, their life stories, and really these kind of engaging pitches to try to participate in this documentary. And from there, we actually whittled it down to 6 people whom we filmed with, and then eventually edited it down to 5 stories that made it into the film.
And which story touched you the most?
There's a story in the film of 2 brothers, one 88 and one 90 years old, who grew up in Washington, D.C., and their story is really touching and emotional and gives kind of a window onto American history because they grew up in a time that as African Americans, they weren't allowed to swim in swimming pools. They tell the story of, walking past their neighborhood pool that was only for white children. But they had this kind of passion and idea to swim, so they actually learned how to swim in the reflecting pool in front of the Washington Monument in Washington, D.C. That's kind of where they learned how to swim and fell in love with it. And, many years later, almost 60 years later, obviously the country has gone through a lot, and, they decided that as seniors they would kind of rekindle this love for swimming and start competing. So it gives kind of a sense of where the country has come, where these 2 gentlemen have come, and, they're just the nicest, most dignified, wonderful human beings that you could meet. You can just tell when you meet them, and, their story of overcoming that kind of adversity was really touching, and they have a tremendous love for swimming, for each other, and I don't mean to spoil it, but they're actually able to both win gold medals.
Oh, wow. That's fantastic. What a beautiful story. How can people share this film with their community, and where can they watch it?
Well, sure. The film is going to be broadcasting nationwide on PBS starting on July 9th, and you can check your local listings for specific times. You can also download it on iTunes or buy a DVD on Amazon. That's all happening on July 9th. And if you go to our website, ageofchampions.org, there's also a package. So for any of your listeners that may be part of a community group or a senior living community, we've actually put together a package and a discussion guide along with the DVD and other resources so they can use the film to not only have a great night of entertainment, watch the movie and, see the story, but to also start a conversation about aging, about health, about fitness, and about whatever is, important to them and all those, really critical issues as people grow older.
What did you find? What did you learn about aging in doing this film?
What I learned, I guess, there are 3 secrets, and these are not medical secrets, but from just my experience, what I saw in all the people at the Senior Olympics and the characters in the film, their secrets to kind of staying young and living a long and healthy life are, really one, kind of the basics, right? You have eating well, exercising, and all those things that we read about and try to do a good job with. And second, I think a little bit more surprising, at least to me, how important it was the role of their families and their friends and their communities. So, they have all these really tight social bonds that allow them to keep vibrant, to keep competing, to keep moving, and to keep living, independent, productive lives. So they all had amazing families that were really in their corner, cheering them on all the time, on the court, and off the court. So they had that. And then third, all of the athletes, especially the competitive ones, just had a tremendous sense of purpose and drive, and they really had a mission. You know, they had something that they get up every day, they're training hard, they're trying to win gold or break a world record even, and that gives them this kind of forward motion that I think is really what I learned is kind of the key to staying active as you get older.
That's fantastic. The movie, again, is called Age of Champions, and watch for it on PBS, or you can go online to ageofchampions.org. Thank you so much, Christopher, for being on the show. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Coming up, what would you do if you had a gene that dramatically increases your risk for breast cancer? Find out next as the Dr. A Show continues.